Black lady sent a sexy photo to a billionaire CEO by mistake. By morning, he appears at her door. Her heart stopped the moment she saw the recipient. Not Jade. Not her best friend. The message had gone to a contact she barely remembered saving. J.M. Mercer Properties. She had just sent a photo of herself in burgundy lingerie to a complete stranger. Her fingers flew across the screen. Wrong number. Please delete immediately. I am so sorry. That was meant for someone else. The response came faster than she expected. No need to apologize. That photo made my entire evening considerably more interesting. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. I will send details in the morning. She typed back immediately. I do not know you. I am not having dinner with a stranger. His reply made her blood run cold. You will not be a stranger for long. Simone Harper. 8 p.m. Do not make me wait. He knew her name. He knew exactly who she was. And by morning, he was standing at her door. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever sent a text to the wrong person? That moment of pure panic when you realize you cannot take it back? Now imagine that text was not just embarrassing. It was a photo, an intimate photo, and it went to a man who owned the building you live in. A billionaire who decided that one accidental photo meant you belonged to him. What would you do if he showed up at your door the next morning, telling you that fate brought you together? Would you slam the door in his face? Call the police? Or would you let curiosity pull you into something you never saw coming? If you have ever believed that one moment can change your entire life, hit that like button right now. And trust me, you are going to want to subscribe before this story is over. Because what happens next? Nobody saw it coming. Not even her. This is the story of Simone Harper, a woman who thought she was reclaiming her power after heartbreak. Instead, she accidentally caught the attention of the most powerful man in the city, and he was not about to let her go. It all started 6 months before that fateful text message. Simone Harper had been in love. The kind of love that makes you rearrange your entire life for someone. The kind that makes you shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Brandon had been charming at first, attentive. He made her feel like the center of the universe. But somewhere along the way, that attention turned into control. His compliments became criticisms wrapped in concern. You would look better if you lost a few pounds. Are you really wearing that? You are too loud, too opinionated, too much. 3 years. 3 years of slowly becoming smaller. 3 years of second-guessing every decision, every outfit, every word that came out of her mouth. And then one Tuesday afternoon, he ended it with a text message. I think we should go our separate ways. You are too complicated for me. I need someone simpler. Someone who does not make everything so difficult. Too complicated. The words burned into her memory like a brand. Simone had cried for weeks. She stopped eating, stopped designing, stopped believing that she was worthy of anything good. Her best friend Jade had practically moved in just to make sure she got out of bed every morning. Slowly, painfully, she started to rebuild. She threw herself into her work as an interior designer. Small projects at first. A living room here, a home office there. She was good at her job, really good. But Brandon's voice still echoed in her head every time she tried to dream bigger. You are too much. No one wants that. 6 months passed. Simone was finally starting to feel like herself again. And then she saw it. Brandon's Instagram post. A photo of him on one knee, a ring box open, a woman with a tearful smile looking down at him. The caption read, she said yes, found my forever, forever. He had found his forever. 6 months after telling Simone she was too complicated. 6 months after breaking her heart via text message. He was engaged to someone else. Something inside her snapped. Not in a broken way. In a defiant way. A fire that had been smoldering beneath the ashes of her self-doubt suddenly roared to life. She was not too much. She was not too complicated. She was exactly enough. And she was going to prove it. If only to herself. Simone walked to her closet and pulled out the lingerie she had bought for their 3rd anniversary. The anniversary that never happened because he left her 2 weeks before. Burgundy silk, delicate lace. She had never even taken off the tags. Tonight she would wear it. Tonight, she would take a photo that reminded her of who she was before Brandon made her forget. She did her makeup with precision. Bold eyes, full lips. She let her natural curls fall around her face like a crown. And when she slipped into that burgundy silk, she looked in the mirror and saw someone she had not seen in years. A queen. She picked up her phone, posed on her bed, and took the shot. Her dark skin glowed against the fabric. Her eyes held fire and defiance. This was not a photo for a man. This was a photo for herself. Proof that she was still beautiful, still powerful, still here. She opened her messages to send it to Jade with the caption, "Still got it," but her finger slipped. The contact auto-corrected, and before she could stop it, the photo was sent. To J.M. Mercer Properties. Simone stared at her phone in absolute horror. No, 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 no. She frantically typed out 3 messages in a row. Wrong number. Please delete immediately. I am so sorry. That was meant for someone else. Please pretend you never saw that. She hit send on all 3 and then sat there, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Mercer Properties. The real estate company that managed her building. She had saved the number months ago when she had a plumbing issue. Some random property manager had just seen her in lingerie. This was a nightmare. An absolute nightmare. Her phone buzzed. She almost did not want to look. But she did. No need to apologize. That photo made my entire evening considerably more interesting. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. I will send details in the morning. Simone's eyes went wide. What kind of response was that? Who talks like that? She typed back immediately. I do not think you understand. That was a mistake. I do not even know you. His reply came within seconds. You will. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. I will send a car. I am not going anywhere with you. This is inappropriate. It is not inappropriate when it is fate. Simone Harper. Apartment 4B. 2847 Wilshire Boulevard. Her blood ran cold. He knew her address, her apartment number, her full name. Her hands trembled as she typed. How do you know where I live? I know everything about my properties and everyone in them. Sleep well, Simone. You will need your energy for tomorrow. The phone went silent. Simone sat in her dark bedroom, her heart racing, her mind spinning. This man, this stranger, he knew where she lived. He had her photo, and he was talking about dinner like it was already decided. She blocked the number, turned off her phone, and told herself that by morning, this would all be forgotten. She was wrong. The knock came at exactly 8:15 in the morning. Simone had barely slept. Every creak of her apartment had made her jump. Every shadow had seemed threatening. She had finally drifted off around 4 a.m., only to be jolted awake by 3 sharp raps on her door. She tightened her robe and crept toward the entrance. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, but she did not open it. Instead, she pressed her eye to the peephole, and her breath caught in her throat. The man standing in her hallway looked like he had stepped out of a different world entirely. Tall, broad shoulders beneath a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. Dark hair swept back from a face that was almost aggressively handsome. Sharp jaw, full lips, eyes the color of aged whiskey that seemed to look directly through the door and into her soul. Miss Harper. His voice was deep and smooth, carrying an accent she could not quite place. I believe we have a dinner to discuss. She did not open the door. How did you get into this building? I own this building. Simone's heart stopped. I own quite a few buildings in the city, he continued, as casually as if he were discussing the weather. Mercer Properties is one of several companies under my umbrella. When you contacted us about apartment availability 8 months ago, your application came across my desk. I found you intriguing. Intriguing enough to show up at my door uninvited? Intriguing enough that when fate delivered your photo to my phone last night, I took it as a sign. Through the peephole, she could see his lips curve into the ghost of a smile. I am Julian Mercer, and I would very much like to take you to dinner. and I would very much like you to leave. I understand your hesitation." He paused. "A strange man appears at your door, claims to own your building, asks you to dinner." It sounds like the beginning of a cautionary tale. That is exactly what it sounds like. But I am not here to frighten you, Simone. I am here because something in that photo stopped me in my tracks. It was an accident. The photo may have been an accident, but the woman in it, the fire in her eyes, the defiance in her posture, that was no accident. That was someone fighting to remember her own worth. Simone felt something shift in her chest, something she did not want to examine too closely. His voice softened. "I know that fight. I have lived it, and I would very much like to know the woman who refuses to let the world dim her light." She pressed her forehead against the door, her resolve wavering in ways she did not want to admit. "One dinner," he said, "in a public place of your choosing. If by the end of the night you want nothing to do with me, I will walk away. You have my word, the word of a stranger. The word of a man who has not been this curious about anyone in longer than he can remember." A pause. "Please, Simone, give me one chance to show you I am not the villain this story appears to make me." She should say no. Every rational cell in her body screamed at her to send him away, to report him to, well, himself apparently, to pretend this never happened. But something in his voice, a vulnerability hiding beneath all that polish and power, made her hesitate. "There is a restaurant on 5th, she finally said. "Rosewood Bistro. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. You will meet me there. No cars, no drivers, no showing up at my apartment uninvited. As you wish, and if you are late, I am leaving. I would not dream of keeping you waiting." When she finally gathered the courage to open the door, he was already gone. In his place, a single white rose lay on her welcome mat. A small card was tucked beneath it. "Until tomorrow, Simone. J." She picked up the rose with trembling hands and brought it inside. The petals were soft against her fingers. The scent was delicate and sweet. What had she just agreed to? She almost did not go. 7 times she picked up her phone to cancel. 7 times she put it back down. She called Jade in a panic. Her best friend's reaction was exactly what she expected. "You are meeting a billionaire who showed up at your door uninvited? Are you out of your mind? I know how it sounds. It sounds like the first 5 minutes of a true crime documentary. Simone, this man looked you up. He knows where you live. He showed up without permission. Those are red flags. Giant red flags. I know, but Jade." Simone hesitated. There was something in his voice. Something in his voice? That is how women end up in basements. He talked about fighting to remember your own worth. Like he understood something that Brandon never did. The line went quiet for a moment. "What did he look like?" Jade finally asked. "Like a magazine cover. Or a warning sign. Possibly both." Jade sighed. "I am tracking your location the entire time. You text me every hour on the hour. And if you do not respond within 5 minutes, I am calling the police and coming there myself with backup. Deal? And Simone, be careful. Rich men are dangerous. Powerful men are worse. A man who is both? That is a whole different kind of trouble." Simone knew her friend was right. But as she hung up the phone and walked to her closet, she could not shake the feeling that something had shifted. Something that had been closed off inside her for months was starting to crack open. She chose the emerald dress, the one that hugged her curves and made her dark skin glow. She let her natural curls fall free, framing her face like a crown. Simple gold hoops, understated heels. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone she had almost forgotten existed. The woman she was before Brandon. Confident, bold, unapologetic. If she was going to walk into danger, she was going to look powerful doing it. Rosewood Bistro was elegant without being pretentious. Warm lighting, fresh flowers on every table. The kind of place where people proposed and celebrated anniversaries. Simone walked in at exactly 7 o'clock. Her heart was pounding, but her face showed nothing but calm. And then she saw him. Julian was already there, seated at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. The moment their eyes met, he stood. Not in the casual way men usually do, but with intention, like she was the only thing in the room worth noticing. He was even more devastating up close. The charcoal suit from that morning had been replaced with something darker, more refined. His eyes tracked her movement across the restaurant with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You came." His voice was soft, almost reverent. "Do not make me regret it." He smiled then, a real smile, the kind that transformed his entire face from intimidating to almost boyish. He pulled out her chair for her, waiting until she was seated before returning to his own. "You look extraordinary," he said. "Flattery will not make me trust you faster. It is not flattery if it is the truth." She studied him across the table. "Who are you, really? And do not give me the business answer. I can Google that. Tell me who you actually are." Julian considered the question. He did not deflect or charm his way around it. "I am a man who built an empire because he was terrified of being powerless." He met her eyes. "I am a man who has spent so long protecting himself that he forgot how to let anyone in. And I am a man who saw your photo last night and felt something he has not felt in a very long time." "What did you feel?" "Curiosity. And hope." He leaned forward slightly. "You were not trying to seduce anyone in that photo. You were trying to remind yourself that you were still beautiful, still worthy." "I recognized that look because I have seen it in my own mirror." Simone's breath caught. How could a stranger see through her so clearly? The rest of the dinner unfolded like something out of a dream. Julian asked about her work as an interior designer. When she described her dream of opening her own firm someday, he did not offer to fund it. He did not try to fix it. He simply leaned forward and said, "Tell me more. What would it look like?" He asked about her family, her childhood in Atlanta, the grandmother who taught her that beautiful spaces could heal wounded souls. He asked about her favorite books, her guilty pleasure television shows, the coffee order she pretended was sophisticated but was really just an excuse to drink dessert for breakfast. And when she finally, reluctantly, mentioned Brandon, the ex who spent 3 years making her feel small before leaving her for someone he called less complicated, Julian's eyes went dark with something dangerous. He was a fool. His voice was quiet but certain. "Any man who makes a woman like you feel less than extraordinary does not deserve to breathe the same air as you. A woman like me, brilliant, beautiful, burning with a light most people spend their entire lives searching for." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. "He could not handle your fire, so he tried to extinguish it. That says everything about him and nothing about you." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. Tears she had not expected. "You do not know me," she whispered. "I want to. More than I have wanted anything in a very long time." 3 hours passed without either of them noticing. When the server apologetically informed them the restaurant was closing, Simone realized she had forgotten to text Jade. She had forgotten to be afraid. She had forgotten everything except the man sitting across from her. She was in trouble, but not the kind she had expected. Have you ever taken a chance on something or someone that logic told you to run from? Drop a comment below and tell me about it. And if you are already hooked on Simone's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next changes everything. One dinner became 2, then 5, then too many to count. Julian was relentless in his pursuit. But not in a way that felt suffocating. In a way that felt like being chosen. Every day, fresh flowers appeared at her office. Not roses, not generic bouquets, but sunflowers because she mentioned they reminded her of her grandmother's garden. Peonies because she loved their scent. Wildflowers because she said they felt more honest than anything arranged. He remembered everything. The name of her childhood dog. Her fear of thunderstorms. The way she took her tea when she was stressed. He remembered that she did not like coffee after 3 in the afternoon, so he would bring her herbal tea instead. He remembered the hole-in-the-wall restaurants she mentioned wanting to try and took her to every single one. One evening, 3 weeks into whatever this was becoming, Simone arrived at his penthouse for dinner. She had been there a few times now. The view still took her breath away. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Furniture that looked more like art than function. Everything pristine and perfect and somehow cold. "Can I ask you something?" She set down her wine glass. "Anything. Why does this place feel so empty?" Julian looked around as if seeing his home for the first time. "Because it is." He turned back to her. "I built all of this. The buildings, the companies, the money. But I never built a life inside any of it. I never had a reason to. That sounds lonely." It was. His eyes held hers. "Until you." Simone felt the walls around her heart tremble. The walls she had built so carefully after Brandon. The walls that were supposed to protect her from ever feeling this vulnerable again. "Julian, I need you to understand something. The last man I loved spent 3 years making me feel like I was too much. Too loud. Too complicated. Too demanding. When he left, I promised myself I would never let anyone have that power over me again." Julian set down his glass and moved closer to her. Not touching. Just present. "I am not him," he said quietly. "I will never be him. And I will spend as long as it takes proving that to you. What if I never believe you? Then I will keep trying anyway." He reached out, gently tucking a curl behind her ear. "You are not too much, Simone. You are exactly enough. And anyone who made you feel otherwise was simply too small to hold everything you are." She kissed him then, not because she trusted him completely, but because she wanted to. Because for the first time in longer than she could remember, she wanted something just for herself. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. But then his hand slid to the small of her back and pulled her closer, and it became something else entirely. Something hungry and desperate and full of all the words neither of them knew how to say. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I am falling for you," he whispered. "I know it is fast. I know you are scared. But I need you to know. This is real for me. You are real for me." Simone closed her eyes. "I am terrified. Me too. But I would rather be terrified with you than safe without you." She did not say it back. Not yet. But something inside her shifted. A door she thought she had sealed forever cracked open just enough to let the light in. 2 weeks later, Julian took her somewhere she did not expect. They had been driving for almost an hour. The city skyline had faded behind them, replaced by stretches of highway and then neighborhoods that grew progressively rougher. Cracked sidewalks, boarded-up windows, chain-link fences wrapped around empty lots. "Where are we going?" Simone asked. "Somewhere I have never taken anyone before." She looked at his profile in the dim light. His jaw was tight. His hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. Whatever this was, it mattered to him. Finally, he pulled the car to a stop in front of an empty lot. Overgrown weeds pushed through cracked concrete. Graffiti covered the remnants of what had once been walls. A rusted chain-link fence surrounded the property, but the gate hung open, long abandoned. Julian turned off the engine but did not move. "This is where I grew up." Simone looked at the broken place in front of her, then back at the man beside her. The billionaire in the tailored suit. The man who owned half the city. She could not reconcile the two images. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads," he continued, his voice stripped of its usual polish. "My father left before I could walk. He never came back, never called, never sent money, just vanished like we meant nothing. Julian." She raised me alone in a 2-room apartment that used to stand right there. He pointed to a spot where nothing remained but weeds and debris. In the winter, we would sleep in the same bed just to stay warm because she could not afford to run the heat. I wore the same pair of shoes until they literally fell apart. And every night, she would tell me that someday things would be different. Someday I would have everything I ever wanted. His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. "She died when I was 12. Heart attack. They said it was from exhaustion. From working herself to death trying to give me a future." Simone reached for his hand. He let her take it. "After she was gone, I went into the foster system. Bounced around from home to home. Some were okay. Most were not. I learned very quickly that no one was coming to save me. If I wanted a different life, I would have to build it myself. And you did. I did. He finally looked at her. Everything I have now. The buildings, the companies, the money. I built it because I never wanted to feel powerless again. I never wanted to be the kid with holes in his shoes, praying his mother would survive another winter. Simone squeezed his hand tighter. But I also built walls, he admitted. I told myself that emotions were weakness, that caring about someone made you vulnerable, that love was a liability. I watched my mother love my father, and it destroyed her when he left. I watched her love me, and it killed her trying to provide for me. Love seemed like nothing but pain dressed in pretty clothes. So you stopped letting people in. Completely. He turned to face her fully. Until you. Why me? Because of the fire in your eyes. Because you blocked my number when most people would be too afraid. Because you showed up to dinner ready to fight me instead of impress me. Because when you look at me, you see a man. Not a title. Not a bank account. Just a man. He reached up and cradled her face in his hands. I have never brought anyone here before, he said. I have never told anyone the full story. But I wanted you to see. I wanted you to understand. Everything I am started in this broken place. And somehow, meeting you has made me realize that I have been building walls for so long, I forgot how to let anyone inside them. Simone felt tears slip down her cheeks. You terrify me, he whispered. I have conquered boardrooms, destroyed competitors, built an empire from nothing. But when you look at me like you are seeing someone worth knowing, I feel like I am falling apart and coming together all at once. She kissed him then, right there in the ruins of his childhood. Her hands gripped his shirt like he might disappear if she let go. His arms wrapped around her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had always been shifting beneath his feet. When they finally pulled apart, Simone pressed her forehead to his. I am falling for you too, she admitted. And it scares me more than anything has in a long time. Then we will be scared together. She laughed through her tears. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. I am just getting started. They sat in the car for another hour, talking about things neither of them had ever said out loud. Childhood fears, secret dreams, the moments that shaped them and the scars that still ached. By the time they drove back to the city, something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer two people dating. They were two people who had chosen to be truly seen. 2 months into their relationship, everything changed. Simone woke up to her phone buzzing incessantly on her nightstand. Text after text after text. She grabbed it with sleep-heavy hands and squinted at the screen. Her blood turned to ice. The first notification was from a gossip site. Mercer's Mystery Woman. Gold Digger or Genuine Love. Beneath the headline were photos. Photos of her and Julian at restaurants, walking in the park, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. And then the photo, the lingerie photo, the one she had accidentally sent, the one that was supposed to stay private, splashed across the internet for the entire world to see. Her hands started shaking so badly she could barely scroll. Brandon's Instagram post appeared next. Someone had tagged her in the comments. His caption made her stomach turn. When your ex trades up to a billionaire, you realize the problem was never you. Some women will do anything for money. The comments section was a cesspool. Hundreds of strangers calling her names, questioning her motives, reducing her entire relationship to a transaction. Gold digger, clout chaser. She probably planned the whole thing. I bet she sent that photo on purpose. By noon, someone had found her work email. The messages were vicious. Enjoy your blood money. Hope he is worth it when everyone knows what you really are. By evening, she had lost 3 clients. People she had worked with for years. People who knew her. They did not want to be associated with that kind of attention. Simone sat on her kitchen floor, her back against the cabinets, and sobbed. Every insecurity Brandon had ever planted in her mind bloomed into full-grown monsters. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was not good enough for Julian's world. Maybe she had been fooling herself thinking she could ever belong anywhere but the shadows. The knock on her door made her flinch. Simone. Julian's voice was urgent. Let me in. She could not move, could not speak, could not do anything but cry. Simone, please. I know what happened. Let me in. It took everything she had to crawl to the door and unlock it. Julian took one look at her and his expression shifted into something she had never seen before. Cold fury. The kind of anger that could destroy empires and ruin lives. He dropped to his knees beside her and pulled her into his arms. Who did this? His voice was ice. Who leaked the photo? Does it matter? It is everywhere now. Everyone thinks I am. She could not finish the sentence. The sobs took over. Julian held her tighter. Listen to me. I do not care what they think. I do not care what any of them say. You are not defined by their jealousy, by their cruelty, by their desperate need to tear down something beautiful because they cannot stand to see someone else happy. But my work, my reputation, I will fix this. You cannot fix the internet. Watch me. Have you ever had someone try to tear you down when you were finally building something beautiful? Type rise in the comments if you have survived someone else's jealousy. And keep watching, because what Julian does next, it is the kind of love most people only dream about. Within 48 hours, Julian's legal team had traced the leaked photo to its source, Brandon. He had kept old backups of Simone's cloud storage from when they shared an account during their relationship. He had accessed her files without permission, downloaded the photo, and sold it to the highest bidding tabloid. It was not just a betrayal. It was a crime, harassment, cyberstalking, unauthorized access to personal files. By the end of the week, Brandon was facing criminal charges and a lawsuit that would drain every cent he had ever earned. But Julian was not finished. He called a press conference, something he never did. Julian Mercer was famously private. He never gave interviews, never appeared at public events unless absolutely necessary. He guarded his personal life like a fortress. But for Simone, he walked straight into the spotlight. She stood beside him as he faced the cameras. Her hand trembled in his, but she did not let go. I am going to make this very clear, Julian said, his voice cutting through the noise of shouting reporters. The woman standing beside me is not a mystery. She is not a scandal. She is not a story for your entertainment. His jaw tightened. Her name is Simone Harper. She is an interior designer, a brilliant one. She is kind and fierce and stronger than anyone I have ever known. And she is the most extraordinary person I have ever met. He turned to look at her. The cameras flashed wildly, but he did not seem to notice. What was done to her was a violation, a crime, and the person responsible will face the full consequences of the law. But more importantly, I want the world to know this. He looked back at the cameras. Anyone who comes for her will have to go through me first. And I promise you, that is not a fight you want. The press conference made headlines for weeks. But not the kind Simone had feared. The narrative shifted. Gold digger became love story. Mystery woman became the woman who captured Julian Mercer's heart. The same internet that had torn her apart began to rally behind her. But none of that mattered as much as what happened that night. They lay tangled together in Julian's penthouse, the city lights glittering beyond the windows. Simone traced the lines of his face in the darkness. You did not have to do that, she whispered. Stand up for me publicly. Let the world into your private life. Yes, I did. He caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. Because you are not my private life, Simone. You are my whole life. And I will never let anyone make you feel small again. She curled into him, her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For the first time since Brandon shattered her, she felt truly safe. 6 months into their relationship, everything changed again. But this time, Simone did not see it coming. Julian had been distant for weeks, distracted. He would take calls in other rooms, his voice too low for her to hear. He would disappear for meetings he would not explain. He would come home late with a tension in his shoulders that he refused to discuss. Simone tried not to let the old insecurities creep back in. But Brandon's voice echoed in her memories. You are too complicated, too demanding, too much. Was Julian pulling away? Had he realized she was not worth the trouble? Had the press conference, the scandal, the chaos of loving her become too heavy to carry? Finally, she could not take it anymore. They were in his penthouse. He had just come home from another mysterious meeting. His tie was loosened, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," Simone said. Julian looked at her. His face was guarded in a way it had not been in months. "If you are pulling away, I need to know," she continued, her voice shaking despite her best efforts. "I cannot do this again. I cannot invest everything in someone who is going to leave. If you have changed your mind about us, just tell me now. Please, do not make me wait for the other shoe to drop." Julian's expression shifted. Pain flashed across his features. Real, raw pain. "Simone, I would never." He stopped, took a breath, ran his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration she had never seen from him before. "Come with me," he finally said. "There is something I need to show you." He drove her across the city as the sun began to set. Simone sat in the passenger seat, her heart pounding with fear. Where were they going? What was he about to tell her? Every worst-case scenario played through her mind on repeat. Finally, he pulled up in front of a building she did not recognize. It was a brownstone, beautiful and stately, with wide windows and a freshly painted red door. Flower boxes sat beneath the windows, waiting to be filled. A small brass plaque beside the door read Harper and Associates. Simone stared at the plaque, then at Julian, then back at the plaque. "I do not understand." Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. He pressed it into her palm. "This is yours." "What?" "Your design firm. Every room, every detail. Exactly the way you described it to me on our third date." Simone's mind reeled. On their third date, she had rambled for almost an hour about her dream of opening her own interior design firm. She had described the kind of space she wanted. Big windows for natural light, exposed brick walls, a cozy meeting room where clients would feel like they were talking to a friend instead of a salesperson. She had not thought he was really listening. She had assumed she was just filling silence with nervous chatter. But he had remembered every word. "This is why I have been distracted for the past 2 months, Julian said. "I was working with architects and contractors trying to make it exactly right. I wanted it to be perfect before I showed you. I wanted you to see. See what? That I believe in you." He took her hands. "This is not a gift, Simone. It is an investment. In you, in your talent, in the future you have been dreaming about for years." Tears streamed down her face. "Julian, I have believed in you since the moment I saw that photo. Not because of how you looked, because of the fire in your eyes. The same fire that made you show up to that first dinner even though you had every reason to run. The same fire that makes you fight for every client, every project, every dream. I do not know what to say. Say yes. Say you will build something magnificent. Say you will let me stand beside you while you take over the world." He smiled, that devastating smile that still made her heart stutter after all these months. "And maybe, while you are at it, say you will marry me." Simone's breath caught. Julian pulled out a ring. It was simple and elegant. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the fading sunlight like captured stars. "I had a whole speech planned," he admitted, "about fate and accidents and how a wrong number led me to exactly the right person. But the truth is simpler than that." He looked into her eyes. "I love you, Simone Harper. I love your strength, your stubborn determination, the way you refuse to let the world tell you who you are. I love waking up next to you and falling asleep in your arms and every single moment in between. Will you marry me?" "Yes." The word came out as a sob, a laugh, prayer. "Yes, Julian. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her close. The kiss that followed tasted like tears and joy and the beginning of everything she had ever wanted. 1 year later, Simone stood in the sunlit studio of Harper and Associates. Her design firm, her dream, her creation. The space was exactly as she had imagined it all those years ago. Exposed brick walls, enormous windows that flooded the room with natural light, A cozy meeting area with overstuffed chairs and fresh flowers. Awards and magazine features lined the walls. Photos of completed projects filled the shelves. She had done this, built this, earned this. Julian appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. 6 months married, and his touch still sent electricity racing through her veins. The Harrington project just confirmed, he murmured against her ear. They want you to design their entire hotel chain. All 37 locations? Every single one. Apparently, you are the only designer who understands how to make spaces feel like home. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I could have told them that on day one. Simone turned in his arms, studying the face she knew better than her own. The sharp jaw that softened when he smiled at her. The eyes that still held shadows of the boy who grew up with nothing. The man who had built an empire but claimed his greatest achievement was convincing her to have dinner with him. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. The photo? Every day. His smile was wicked. In fact, I still have it saved. For inspiration. Julian Mercer, you are incorrigible. I am hopelessly, irrevocably, completely in love with my wife. He pulled her closer. There is a difference. Is there? He kissed her softly. The difference is that being incorrigible is a personality trait. Being in love with you is my entire reason for existing. Simone laughed. That full body laugh that had become so much easier since Julian had come into her life. You are ridiculous. And yet you married me. Best mistake I ever made. Second best. His eyes sparkled. The best mistake was hitting send on that photo. Sometimes the universe works in ways we cannot predict or control. Sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right person. Sometimes a moment of vulnerability, a photo taken in defiance of heartbreak, sent to a stranger by accident, becomes the catalyst for a love that transforms everything. Simone had learned that fire does not diminish when shared with the right person. It grows. It blazes. It lights up the darkness in ways you never imagined possible. And as she stood in the life she had built, the business thriving, the man she loved beside her, a future stretching out before them like an unwritten promise, she understood something profound. The photo had been an accident, but the love that followed, that was destiny, wearing the disguise of a mistake, waiting for her to be brave enough to answer the door. If the story touched your heart, do not just leave. Let me know. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you the hardest. Hit that like button if you believe that sometimes mistakes lead us exactly where we are meant to be. And subscribe to this channel, because we have so many more stories of love, destiny, and unexpected miracles coming your way. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that their next chapter could change everything. What would you have done in Simone's position? Would you have blocked the number and locked the door? Or would you have let fate in? A wrong number. A photo meant for someone else. A knock on the door. And a love that changed everything. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next story.